I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's also something called a permanent total disability. This is complete physical incapacity or inability to work after some kind of an injury. There's a few statutory ones. For example, you lose both legs or both eyes. That's another one where by statute you're defined as permanently totally disabled. If you don't have those statutory ones, then typically with back injuries, there has to be a medical report showing that you are totally disabled from, let's say, a back injury or back surgery. Typically, you've gone through an independent medical exam where the insurance company's doctors looked at it and agreed, disagreed, whatever. But the employee also has to have a vocational report supported by a medical opinion saying they are totally disabled. And this is where a lot of fighting can happen. And these are usually big dollar amount claims because there's been a lot of treatment. There's usually been some kind of surgery. These go on for a while. These are the big ones that cause a lot of people headaches. Luckily, that's not the majority of the claims that are out there. If you can establish a PTD, that an employee can establish that he's permanently totally disabled, then you get your temporary total disability for life and reasonable and necessary medical expenses. So if you have a traumatic amputation and are unable to return to any kind of work because of that, then you're going to have medical bills the rest of your life. And there are files that we'd have open when I was on the carrier side that have been around for decades where once or twice a year we'd have to have a fitting for a prosthetic or some other thing that we'd have to have open, and we just have to take care of them a few times a year. Vocational rehab and retraining may come up as a potential benefit that an employee can get. It needs a permanent partial disability rating. There has to be permanent work restrictions, and he or she are unable to return to their old job. And what it does is that it seeks to restore the injured worker as nearly as possible to pre-injury earning capacity. That's really what it. If you read the Department of Workforce Development, that's what the intention is. So what is it? It's like you can't return to work at your old job, so you go in for vocational rehabilitation, which is you go back for education. And it's almost always technical college. You're going back for a 2-year degree or community college kind of a degree for some other kind of training to do some other work. And the insurance company has to pay for the tuition. When you're in school, they pay for the temporary total disability, reasonable meals and lodging and mileage. And it's its own little ball of wax as to what's owed and what's not owed. They don't have to make you better than what you made before. Essentially, 90% is close enough. As long as they can get you close, that's all they're looking for. And some workers do go through this they do go through voc rehab, and they go out then they go out to another job later. But usually, what you see it as is the attorney for the employee is using it as a bargaining tool for settlement. They'll say, "Well, look, I'm going to go for retraining." And it's just a bargaining chip to try to maybe get a better PPD rating, maybe get better other kinds of settlement to resolve a claim. That's where you see it most often, but you do see it, and that is something that is available to to some of the injured workers if they meet all these restrictions. Fatalities, don't want to spend just too much time on this. There's a maximum death benefit in 2018. It's usually calculated as the annual wage times 4 would be to a maximum of $298,200. Also, of course, if there's a fatality, any medical bills that are associated with that are obviously part of that. But most of the time it's fatality. It's on site. There's really no medical bills. That's what you're looking at for benefits. Unless except if he's not married or the person is not married or has no kids and has unestranged parents, so you still know the parents. If they're the only people that, especially with younger guys who aren't married yet, the maximum that the parents get is $6,500. That's all that would end up getting paid. They pick up the burial expenses up to $10,000, and anytime there's a fatality, there has to be a $20,000 payment into the Work Injury Supplemental Benefit Fund. It's been around for years. Doesn't matter. If there's a fatality, $20,000 goes to that fund, and then the burial expenses, and then you can see if there's essentially, call it heirs at law of a family, that's $298,200. If there's only unestranged parents, meaning they still talk to each other, $6,500 is the max.